thoughts on climate change. Oh, goodness me. Goodness me. I think it's absolutely real. But to keep this whole thing short, I know there are people that don't think it's real. Let me tell you this. There are differences of opinions on this stuff, and it's all about what information you've been exposed to. So to not get too into it right now, let's just say next time these discussions come up, just remember when talking to people who have a different opinion to you that there are different worlds of information that you can experience and learn about on the internet. In the past, information was more controlled and more from one source. People would have differing opinions, but we'd tend to get our news from the same sort of places, right? And then in the late 80s and 90s, things like Fox TV turned up, and other big networks started to have more opinion-oriented types of programming, which changed the sets of information that different people would get from one another. So we're dealing with information that comes from vested interests, different goals, and we've just got to be respectful with one another when we talk about this stuff, because we can learn a little bit from one another. And these types of topics and conversations often just quickly descend into bickering, and that's productive for no one. For me, I'm deep into my edutainment on YouTube. I love the science communicator community. I really enjoy people who take the time to get the latest research, discoveries, understandings of what's going on in the world, and then communicate it. And through that, I feel like I've really got a clear picture of how symbiotic the planet is. Even if we're going to say something like man-made climate change is a hoax or whatever, there's still so much symbiosis between us and our planet that we have to be good stewards of the planet. And there are also more economic arguments for staying on fossil fuels, and how switching to different types of industries could be difficult and damaging. But to me, it feels like we've been terrible stewards of this planet. I mean, look at the garbage patch out in the ocean. That's a huge problem. And there's that guy, Stefan, I think is his name, from France, who's working on solving the garbage patch problem. And they recently launched this product, which is sunglasses made from the plastic out there in the ocean. And the whole product and the way it's shipped and all this stuff is supposed to be as sustainable and whatnot as possible, right? And it just sounds fantastic. And I tell you what, I've been meaning to get on that, and I'm going to add it to my list of notes to do after the stream, because I absolutely want to get myself some sunglasses made out of that plastic from the ocean, because we need to reuse that stuff. We need to get it out of the ocean and make use of it. And it's super, super cool. Okay, so people in chat are responding saying, that sounds cool. It's really cool. I think it's called Operation Ocean Cleanup, and I think his name is Stefan Borlat or something. Someone in chat will say it, and then I'll be able to repeat it when I see it, because I know what it is then. Go on, someone tell us who it is, because you need to go check that out on YouTube. Boyan Slat, and the organisation is called Ocean Cleanup Project. Let me grab that message. Bam. Yes, that's the one. You got it. You got it absolutely right. Borat question mark. No, he's Dutch apparently. Oh, okay, got it totally wrong. Check out Ocean Bottle as well. I will. I'm writing that down. That sounds amazing. Ocean Bottle already. I want to know more about companies that do this. I learned about a bunch of companies that do interesting things when you die the other day, thanks to Joe Scott. You can pay to have your body attached, the remains of your body sort of attached to a tree, for it to suck up all of the nutrients that are left over from your body to help grow that tree. That sounds absolutely amazing. I would love to do something like that. Imagine that, like that tree will be part you, in a way. I think it's beautiful. That's disgusting, says Extreme. How is that disgusting? When you die, what do you think happens to your body? It's going to become a part of everything again. And I think, what a beautiful gesture to make that more direct, because there's a lot of things that we do with dead bodies that are not so good for the environment, like all the preservatives and stuff done to, make a corpse look fresh and presentable at a funeral, an open casket one or whatever. You know, I always just wanted to be like buried in the ground for as long as I can remember. Actually, no, there's a time when I wanted to be shot into space in the hopes that like an alien civilization would one day find my body drifting and resurrect me and bring me to life. That could be a terrible idea. That could be like the most torturous experience ever. So now I just want to be buried under a tree, right? Bury me under a tree and let me become part of the tree, you know? Better for the environment than burning, says Silverwinds. I don't think so. I think all the embalming stuff is like supposed to be pretty terrible. Burning might not be good. I don't know the specifics. I watched a video about it. It was fascinating. But it seemed to me the gist of it that embalming and all of that is kind of bad for the environment, all these chemicals and stuff, and that there are other alternatives. So I'd be happy with just being buried in the ground, you know, let the worms eat me, kind of thing. Lovely way of giving back. What is anyone else going to do with your body aside from study it for science? That's another, I think, actually good, like, honourable idea, if you like, to give your body up for science and medical research. My only hesitation with that is, like, what if the afterlife is linked to your body? What if you die and you just hover over your body? Like, uh-oh, I'm watching myself getting poked with a needle. A science needle. Those sneaky scientists. Poking around at my dead body. Jeez! Definitely take a look at Ask a Mortician on YouTube if you're interested in this stuff. I'm not particularly interested in mortician-related things. It was more how it related to the environment that I was interested in. Because it's quite a morbid subject. Like, I can deal with a little bit of that, but sometimes I'm totally not in the mood for it. I'm just like, nope. There is fire here. I do not know why. But just going back to the beginning of this video, we got started on climate change, right? And I kind of touched on this idea that we have different sets of information available to us. And this is something we really got to think about a lot. And I think it applies to the recent election and a lot of the drama that happened around that. The things that people were saying to one another, especially on social media, for example. And I tend to look at things now rather than left and right, or you're sort of agreeable and you're not, and think about what's behind someone's opinion, right? Totally different sets of information that have been fed to people, and it's really easy to kind of think the other person's, you know, in the wrong and I'm in the right. And I see that a lot on Twitter, on Reddit as well, how people kind of put the slam dunk on each other, right? And here's why your whole political view is upside down, and it's no way of communicating to one another because it doesn't make sense to you unless you're exposed to the same set of information. So I'd say when communicating to each other, we really got to keep that in mind, that we're not getting the same sets of information. Now there is something else called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is this idea that the less knowledgeable you are about something, the more likely it is that you can think you're an expert, or maybe it's like you're more susceptible to thinking you know what something is when you know less about it. So like the whole idea of some of the voting being fraudulent, it can seem like, yeah, this is a concept that could make sense, right? Your party's behind and it's because the other party are engaging in fraudulent activity, people are throwing around accusations, but you know, if you were to ask yourself how much of the voting system you understand works and from what level, try and imagine like, oh, well, where does it start? Someone has to design the ballot on which you vote on, right? And then what's in that ballot and how is it distributed? How do people handle the ballots? Where do they go to? Who's involved? Who runs checks and balances? All of a sudden there's this like big web of unknowns, at least for me, because I'm not claiming to be an expert on this stuff. I'm just thinking about how I'm not an expert. So for me to have some like strong opinions on the nature of the balloting and what happened and if there was foul play or not, it would kind of be erroneous because I know next to nothing about it. And so we have to put our faith in experts and other people who are talking heads. We also got to question how much they know as well, because I mean, I'm not going to name names, but everyone kind of understands what's going on at the moment, and, you know, I'll leave the rest of this up to yourself. Just a random shulker box there. to just question it a bit more. You know, think about where the expertise is and think about who's talking and how knowledgeable they are about what they're talking a fair bit. Like, you know, I'm an ignoramus, but the thing I love to talk about and educate on is like my own ignorances, right? But I feel like the logic of what I say holds up, especially right here. So, you know, those are kind of my thoughts on, you know, information diet and how we're not experts yet. We tend to get really passionate about things that we tend to know not a lot about, and we have to trust other sources, and maybe we should question those sources a little bit from time to time. Anyway, those are my additional thoughts. Thanks for listening.